Mr. Mack Brown joins us on XL Primetime. Coach, how are you?
I'm doing great. Got a lot of meetings today and a lot of things to discuss.
What are we discussing and what are we meeting about? Because these are tough decisions these football coaches are having to make.
Well, they are, and really we're discussing the process more than anything else is how do we get things done? How did name, image, and likeness slip in and we really didn't have any input? And now it affects our lives. It's changing. How about these coaches in their first year? And they get hit with transfer portal and name, image, and likeness. Welcome to college football, man. Then you start looking at scheduling and TV packaging, and you start looking at recruiting calendars. You start looking at transfer portal calendars, and how do we get some guidelines, some guardrails for some of this stuff? What does tampering mean? What is what was the intent of name, image, and likeness, and now what is it? Was the intent to start recruiting guys off your own team to go to other places, or that wasn't supposed to happen, wasn't part of this? And there's a lot of great things with name, image, and likeness. We've got a young guy with cancer. He's able to sell T-shirts and make a little money to help his family at a tough time. There's the first thing that our quarterback last year, Sam Howell, did is feed underprivileged kids around Chapel Hill with his first opportunity. So it's teaching young guys how to handle their money. It's teaching young guys how to make money. It's teaching young guys how to handle taxes. So we look at all the things that were out there that was the purpose of name, image, and likeness. It's good. Then you look at incentives to play, incentives for recruits, all those things that aren't supposed to happen, that people step over the lines. And now we got to pull some of that back. And when you get the toothpaste out of the tube, it's hard to get it back in.
Right.
And that's about what all these discussions are about with the ADs. We also have some after COVID rules. We had unlimited players coming to our preseason camps because they didn't want to bring in kids that might have COVID from outside. Now we're cutting back to 110. So now you've got to have discussions with everybody on your team that's working hard every day for 4 years, and now you got to tell them they can't come back for 2 weeks before school starts. So there's just a lot of major issues and some things that we think are major when you're telling a young man and somebody's son that they can't come back. Seems minor, but that's major to a coach who's trying to deal with mental health. And we're all talking more about safety of the player and mental health of all of our student athletes, because suicides are at an all-time high right now, and that's a concern for everybody, obviously.
So I've been saying this over and over, Mac, and I want to get your thoughts on it. You guys will figure out NIL. That's not a problem. And I think you guys are all for players getting the money because they deserve it. It's the transfer portal that's really is putting a stress on you guys. It's re-recruiting your own roster. It's recruiting high schools, recruiting transfers. That's the problem, roster management, right?
Yeah, and roster management's a disaster starting with the extra COVID year.
Right.
If they stay 6 years, how many graduate classes can they take and how many degrees can they get? You know, we got guys, can you get them in graduate school at a place like North Carolina? But I don't even think it's the transfer portal, Matt, as much as the 1 year of one-time free transfer.
Right.
Let's go back to the appeals. You know, at least a young guy, Joe Burrow, the transfer portal was great for him. Third-team quarterback at Ohio State, wins a national championship, wins a Heisman, plays for a Super Bowl.
Right.
Wouldn't have happened if he hadn't transferred. But let's don't give the young guy that gets mad after the third game of the season an outlet to say, I'm out of here, or someone who can come in and just buy your players 3 days before the last day to go into the portal. And the other thing people have said is, well, let's put some better dates. Let's say you can't leave till after your season. You can't leave till November 1st or 5 days after your last game. They can still leave.
Right.
They can still quit. You can quit September 8th if you want to. And the NCAA rule says you have to pay that young man scholarship until the end of the semester. What happens if he starts the semester for the fall in for the spring in February, and then quits 3 days after he starts school? You've still got to pay his way through June. So we've got to just look at the whole thing. I wish we'd slowed down and thought about all these things before we let the toothpaste out of the tube, like I said, and we didn't. So now, and we'll fix it. We'll fix the transfer portal.
Why was it such a rush to let it all out at one time?
I don't know. I have no idea, and that's more. I think what we have to look at more than anything else is the structure. How do these things get pushed through? There's stop gaps in everybody's lives where you can stop something and discuss it before it goes too far.
Right.
We don't have that right now. Things are just getting passed through very quickly. Some of it has to do with federal law. And now next year we're giving academic money for people to go to class. Athletic directors across the country have got a nightmare because there's a lot of money going out and no more coming in.
Right.
So I just think that you said it, Matt. It'll be in time. We'll get NIL worked out, but it's going to be some pains and it'll take some time, and some coaches will be fired during the interim, which is not good. I told a group this morning, coaches are getting fired in 2 or 3 years. Come on, man. Some of these guys don't have 3 years for you to figure this thing out. They need it in the morning.
Right.
So I think more than anything else that when you've got this many new issues, what people have to do is have better leadership. And all of us have to step up and figure out how to navigate it. Don't gripe about it. It's real. It's not changing short term, so how do we fix it? And what do we do to manage it, navigate it, and then fix it? And I think that's where leadership needs to step up more than ever before. Where are we with the NCAA? Where are we with our president stepping down in a year? Where are we with new guardrails and guidance? What will be the process of rulemaking in the future? When coaches want 2 extra days just for preseason for safety because they want to slow down a little bit, but your Power 5 wants it and then your Group of 5 doesn't, or Division 2s, 3s
don't.
They don't want to pay for 2 extra days.
Right.
Why don't we have governance where it's separated and we can vote separately? There's just it seems like so many simple things that we can do that are common sense things that need to be done and need to be done immediately that are frustrating for a lot of the coaches. I said we've got experts in coaching because if you got 65 Power 5 schools, you got 65 experts and they got no input. So why wouldn't we ask the people who do this on a day-to-day basis for input?
Right.
And I think that's what we're missing right now.
So if you're just joining us, again, live ACC meetings here in Amelia Island, we are joined by UNC head football coach Mack Brown. Coach, let's take it more to your program, this overarching conversation we're having about NIL, transfers, what have, and the other. Where does your team sit as spring practices wrapping up and you're looking towards the fall compared to maybe where you would have been a year or two ago, minus that whole COVID part of the factor in the situation? We
came in when North Carolina had won 5 games the last 2 years. They won 2 games the previous year. So we far exceeded expectations the first year. We won 7 games, won a bowl game, could have won 9 just as easily as 7. That would have been a disaster because then expectations would have been so far further out of touch than they were. And then the second year we go to the Orange Bowl and play A&M, have a chance to win without 4 of our best players. So first 2 years far exceeded expectations. Lost. And
that was despite a global pandemic affecting the way.
Yeah, and I admire coaches and the administrators, doctors, but mostly the players. We didn't know if they were going to be sick or not. Mm-hmm. We weren't sure.
They didn't either.
They didn't know, yeah. and they saved athletics.
Yeah.
Because without college football, we wouldn't have had enough money to keep these doors open, and gave all of us something to do at a time where we needed it.
Great.
I just admire so much. They didn't even blink. Our guys wanted to play. In fact, we had a little breakout, and we told them they went to a restaurant to eat. We'd done 3 weeks without any positives. They come back on Friday night. By Monday, we got 37 positives. So we had this little meeting and said, okay, I can go fish, I can go hunt, I can play golf. I'm good, man. If you want to play, you can't go out. We got to use the NBA model, and we got to have a bubble.
Right.
And you got to stay inside, and that's it, period. So your scholarship's good, but if you're going to play, you got to buy in. and we didn't have a positive the rest of the year. It's the most unbelievable group of kids I've ever been around. So what a rewarding year from so many ways. And then last year we're rated 8th. We're not. It was just preseason rating. I've been on your side of this, and I've been on mine. And I kept saying we're not, but I didn't want to tell our team we stunk. So there's that balance, but nobody listened, and I knew it. I saw it. And then we played like this. We had some great things that we did that nobody recognized because we didn't meet expectations. But we were inconsistent. I can't stand that. My job's to be consistent. Mm-hmm. You're supposed to be who you are every day, and your team's supposed to play like you are and be a reflection of you. And, boy, that means I stunk too because I was up and down if they were up and down. So changed a few coaches, had one leave. I was talking to Matt earlier. You get Gene Chizik, who won a national championship with us at Texas, and then he wins one at Auburn. How many times does that happen? So you get him in there. Last time he was there, they won 11 games with him as defensive coordinator at Carolina. He brings in Charlton Warren, who's coached back at North Carolina with Gene, but he was at Tennessee, Georgia, Florida. Defensive coordinator at Indiana. He's a 10-year war hero from Special Forces at Air Force, so he's really talking about discipline and toughness. And then we bring in Jack McNeil Jr. from Louisville, and we had the most sacks and the most tackles for loss in the league last year. They had the fewest. So he's done an amazing job. 7-year NFL coach and 9-year head coach at Louisiana Tech. So I think we've got some really positive things happening with our staff. Gave us new energy. We had a group of kind of older guys and really talented young guys because we've recruited well, so we had a gap. Now we're just a young team that's got to grow up. And I've told our team it's our responsibility to get you on the field and play as good as you look because we look pretty. We're talented, so now we've got to play. And that's our coach's job, and it's the player's job too. But fewer penalties this spring, fewer sacks, fewer tackles for loss. Got to get more turnovers on defense. Got to stop the run better on first down. Got to do a better job in the kicking game. But it's all there, and they have totally bought in. I had so much fun the first and second year back. Last year I didn't enjoy it at all. It just wasn't fun because I never knew who was going to show up. This spring was so much fun again, so I'm excited about opening day because I like this team. And when you like your team, you got a chance.
Now, Coach, how do you replace the productivity of Sam Howell?
Biggest thing you do is you've got to go back and figure out who you are on offense. When I had my 5 years out, I looked at every coach, I looked at every offense and defense, and I didn't know if I was going to coach again, but I thought if I did, what do you want to do? So I wanted to have the air raid passing attack with the power running game. Mm-hmm. And that's what Cliff Kingsbury was doing with the Cardinals. That's what Lincoln Riley was doing at Oklahoma, and I liked that. I thought I had trouble stopping the air raid, but they couldn't run it, so that was our chance to stop it. You do both, you got no chance. And then for 2 years, we run up down the field. So now we've got to go back and tweak it. We got 2 young quarterbacks that are really talented, and Drake May and Jacoby Criswell, and neither one have played a lot. So we got to help them. We got to protect them. We had them in competitive situations this spring, so we put pressure on them every day like it was a game. And I like the way they responded. They didn't separate, which is good that they're both good enough, and bad that one of them needs to take the leadership role and separate. But we've got some young backs. We've got an offensive line that's experienced. We've got some receivers that are experienced. About the entire defense is back. I think we got a chance. I said after being rated 8th last year, I think we should be rated 97th. and then the expectations will be a little bit lower. And whatever we do, we can slowly build back.
You guys all love that. Y'all want to be ranked real low.
Yeah.
All right, now
unless you're real good, then it's okay.
just a couple more for Coach Mack Brown of UNC, and let's use that as a backdrop for Sam Howell. Projected high, drafted lower than a lot of people expected. He has the skill set for today's NFL. How do you think he will do?
I think he'll do great. Washington killed it because they got to me, a top-round draft choice in the 5th, in the early 5th, and he's tough, he's smart, he's driven. Now he goes in with that chip on his shoulder. He loves Ron Rivera from his time at Charlotte. Mm-hmm. He has great respect for him. De'Ami Brown's one of his best friends, a top receiver from us that went to Washington. So I really feel like he's a strong person of faith. If you ask Sam, he would say, "This is where I'm meant to be." Mm-hmm. He doesn't care about the money. He doesn't. All of us do, but that's not the way he's built. He'll make his money when he gets to play enough. They've had some inconsistencies at their quarterback position.
Yeah.
I think he feels really, really excited about where he ended up. And really and truly, it's about the team more than anything else. Because if you're going to make a lot of money, you're going to make it over years. You're not going to make it in a year. Mm-hmm. So he's a guy that just takes whatever happens and handles it. He takes negatives and turns them into positive, and I'm really excited for him.
All right, let's wrap it up with Mack Brown. Mack, last year when the playoff came out, the idea of the 12-teamer, your team was very vocal in saying they didn't want that format. They didn't want to have a situation where they could have to play 17 games. You as a coach now, stepping away from that, where do you think this is going to end up, the playoff?
Yeah, I messed up because I was asked to ask them. I didn't have enough information.
Yeah.
I thought in retrospect it was kind of like the transfer portal in NIL. I just said, what about a 12-team playoff? You want 6, you want 8, you want 12? And they said, what does that mean? So how many games would we play? Would we still have a conference championship? Would we still have 2 divisions?
Right.
Would we? Mm-hmm. And I had no answers. So what I thought, and our league kind of thought, is let's take a deep breath and let's figure out what all this means. What does it mean for finals? What does it mean for the holidays? Mm-hmm. What does it mean to the bowl structure, which has been great to all of us? And there's some teams in our league that are not going to be in the playoff probably. It'd have to be an unusual year, so they're more interested in the bowls than are they the playoffs. Kids want to know how many games does that mean? How many more practices is that? Am I going to get paid? Do my parents get to come to the games? So I think, Matt, I messed it up because I took a narrative that somebody asked me to ask your team, and I was stupid because I asked them an answer without giving them information. So I apologized to them, and I went back and said, let's get somebody to figure out what all this means.
Right.
What does it mean for 6? What does it mean for 8? What does it mean for 12? What does it mean for 16? Do 1 and 2 get a bye? Does 1 play 12? Do we play at the site of the university? There's so many things, again, that we were just going to run out there and jump in the pool without having any,
right?
without having a life jacket. I mean, so take a deep breath. So I apologized to the players, and I said, I will never do that again. We're going to slow down and have information before we start asking you for an answer without giving you information. So I think at some point, because of money, we'll end up being there. But there's so many narratives right now in college athletics. Are we going to go to one major conference? Are we going to cut it down to those that have a lot of money and those that don't?
Right.
Are we going to have 3 conferences instead of 5? Where are we headed? And I think until we figure all this out right now, it's impossible to get answers for 5 years out when we don't know what we're doing today. And the TV packages for the SEC and the Big Ten are coming up. That's going to make a difference.
Right.
So we're looking at scheduling because everybody needs to have marquee games now to get better TV revenue.
Right.
And if we don't have TV revenue, we can't pay our coaches and can't get facilities. And so I've been in this stuff 40-something years, and I've never seen it like it is today. And I think there are just so many unanswered questions, and we need some really, really smart people to sit down and get common sense and get a hold of this. You can give a kid $100,000 now, but you can't call him but once a week. I mean, it gets a little confusing with some of these rules we've got. So, and
that might be the realest line we've heard all day, right there. That's it right there.
That's kind of
where we are.
Yeah, that kind of underscores the whole unruly nature of everything right now in college sports.
It does.
Mack, thank you so much for being so generous with your time. We really appreciate it. Have a great summer.
Thank you all. Thanks for having me on, and we'll see you in the fall.